This week I have a cold, so it is the perfect timing for this very special episode. Now, if you haven't already heard, I'm running a summit for tutors. It's called Sumantha's Online Summit 2026. So wherever you are in the world, as long as the time difference matches for you, you're very welcome to attend. If you attend on the day, live, it's completely free. And if you want to pay a little bit for some extras, the VIP pass will give you access to more things like the recordings and special Do It With Me sessions. So if you go to upgradeyourEducationBusiness.com, you will see on the top right there is a button to head over to the summit. Now, here's the thing. With the summit, my goal was to bring our community together and hear from as many voices as possible. It's why I'm not even speaking on the main day, because I don't want to take up space. Instead, I'm running a VIP session. And with that goal, I also decided to invite a few tutors who pitched some ideas for me to create a very special episode. So without further ado, I'm going to let you listen to their insights. And the question I asked them was, what was a light bulb moment that really changed how you did things in your tutoring business or your tutoring practice? It's really aligned with the theme of this summit, which is redefining what's possible. I hope you enjoy.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I live in Devon, and 5 years ago, I left school to start my own tuition business with my business partner, Liz Fancourt.
Lovely. What do you guys do? Remind me, because it's shifted over time, hasn't it?
We have shifted over time. So we run an outreach alternative provision across 4 counties or 4 local authorities of the Southwest. Working with a team of tutors online, face-to-face.
And when we met, because we met originally when you joined the mastermind, didn't you? We were working together and your business looked very different. And I still remember that turning point when you were like, we've had this idea. And it kind of started with a Facebook group, and then it just kind of grew from there, where you really became a known and a go-to, and you then specialized in AP, didn't you?
Yeah.
It was a real journey.
Yeah, I'm glad you remember that, because that was a big part of our moment as well. When we kind of changed direction. Yeah,
it's amazing. And I'd love for you to tell me when you had that light bulb moment that really helped you think differently about your business, think differently about how you were making decisions, what you were offering, all of that.
So when we started, Liz and myself, we're both primary school teachers, and we were specialising in, or we were aiming to do English and Maths, Year 6 and 11 plus. And it never really sat comfortably with us. And we both wanted to work in alternative provision. We started doing a lot of business reading. You're very influential in that, Sam, as well. So one of the books we read was Get Different by Mike Michalowicz. I think we were also in this 11 plus Facebook group where thousands and thousands of parents are in this group, and we could post in there twice a week, which we were doing religiously. But then you looked down the group and everyone was saying the same things, exactly the same things. We all, build confidence. We all sort of, think grades are sort of, get children past those grades to where they want to be. And I just started feeling really uncomfortable about being the same. And I never felt true to myself. So we read the book Get Different, and it just gave us a different perspective to rethink what are our values. And we want to put people first. We're very trauma informed, seeing the relationship as the key to good tuition. And we didn't have the base to do the 11 plus tuition. We were doing it because we thought that's what we should do.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because I've spoken to a few people for this episode, and there is this kind of theme that's forming. It wasn't intentional, because actually everyone wrote something slightly different when they were applying to speak on this episode. But it turns out the theme is very similar, and that is it's having the confidence to take that step back
and remove the shoulds, remove, well, this must be my option because that's what everyone else is doing. And actually knowing when to say no, what to say no to, why you're saying no, and just thinking about what's really aligned with you and what aligns with your values and what lights you up, and using all of that to really drive how you're supporting people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for us, when we were back in your group as well, whenever I think of you, Sam, I always think of you saying you're not creating cookie cutter businesses, but there's certainly, there's trends in tuition. And over the past 5 years, when we left school situations, everyone was NTP, NTP's where the money is. And then it was 11 plus is where the money is. The group teaching, that's where you're going to make the money. And now it's AP. I see it everywhere. Alternative provision coming up. That's where you're going to make your money. I don't think whichever one of those you choose is going to be an easy option. It's going to be all of those ways to deliver tuition and to grow your business are going to be a hard path. But if you choose the wrong path for you, it's going to be twice as hard.
A really good point.
And it's not necessarily where the money is. We chose to work in AP. We chose to move from 11 plus and work in AP because it was more aligned. Now, I didn't used to admit this to anybody, but I didn't have a very successful school education myself. I left at 15 to go and work in the Wimpy. And then I went back a little bit later. Now, when I was saying, we can do 11 plus, absolutely we can do 11 plus. That's not my level of intelligence or my teaching or what I can deliver, but that was just my history. And there I was sat amongst these Cambridge graduates who went to grammar schools themselves, and my voice was very small because I didn't want to be found out. I didn't want to be, held up for this person who left at 15 to go and work in the Wimpy. And so because I didn't want to be found out, I was much quieter, and I didn't feel that I could give everything into my business or develop it, particularly over, social media. That's a badge of honor for me now, because all of our kids are in similar situations. Well, all of our, a lot of our kids are in very similar situations. They're finding school really difficult. They're leaving school early. They don't have as many exams when they're 16 as, the expected standard. And now I'm a role model to them, which is a complete turnaround. So something that I was felt I could never say out loud as a teacher or a tutor has become my real badge of honor now.
That's so profound. That's so profound, because what you're essentially saying is I was shrinking to sit at that table.
Exactly that.
And if you have to shrink to sit at a table, it's not a table you should be sat at.
Yes. That's exactly that.
Yeah. And I think that concept applies to so many things. I've had conversations more recently with some tutors who have approached me saying, I'm really scared of being visible. I'm really scared of being visible because there are politics and people saying this and people saying that. And I've found myself repeating that line, that if you're trying to sit at a table and you're having to shrink to sit there, you've got to question whether that's where you want to be. And it can apply to when you're thinking about what you're offering as well.
Exactly that. And I don't think, it can work in any way, whether you like working with the children who are grade 8 and you love pushing them to be a grade 9 in physics, and that's your little space. There is space for you. You don't have to follow anybody else or any other person's business model, because when you learn what does align with you, you will shout from the rooftops.
And you'll learn,
get that out there.
Yeah.
You absolutely will. Yeah.
That's the thing. When you love something, like, I'm a really firm believer that one of the traits we all need to have is to remain curious and to keep learning all the time. And, I love business. It's no coincidence that I will invest and cancel tuition to go to events where I'm learning about business, or read the books or the podcast or whatever it may be, that's voluntary time. I can still do what I do effectively enough without staying curious. But that doesn't just make me better at what I do and continually improve what I'm doing. It also means that I'm filling my professional world with something that really lights me up. And so it's a bit chicken and egg. If you don't feel passionate and aligned with what you're doing and confident with what you're doing, you're not going to volunteer your time to keep learning and stay up to date and to network and do whatever, immerse yourself in that world. If you don't immerse yourself in that world, then you're not necessarily going to be able to really position yourself as a go-to in that particular space. And so it's like you need both. And the thing that underpins both of those things is doing something that is really aligned, whether it's group tuition, online, face-to-face. That's actually not the important question or the answer here. It's what works for you, what lights you up, where are you at your best, and does that align with the students that you want to serve?
Yes, exactly. We read the Get Different book. We then both worked on our values, did Ikigai, worked out where we wanted to place our tuition and where we wanted to grow from. And we still do that today, and we still hold those values today. And they're on our website and they're all over the place, but they just help define us. And I think going back to that cookie cutter idea, if you're following the trend and looking for where's the money now and the next thing, it's not there unless the passion drives you as well.
Yeah, because there are 100 ways to make money. It's choosing which way is going to work for you, because everything works and nothing works. It just depends on how all in you can go, and you will go all in if you're passionate about it. Sarah, thank you so much for having this very, very important conversation. It's been way more profound than I even realized based on what you'd messaged me with. I'm so glad we had it. It's always lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for contributing towards this, and I hope to see you at the summit.
You're welcome, Sam, and thank you for contributing towards helping us discover our values in the first place.
Oh, what a pleasure.
Hello, I'm Maria Martin. I run Maria's Tutoring Services, and I was a full-time teacher, Senko, maths specialist, worked across primary, secondary and FE actually, before deciding to run a tutoring business.
Wonderful. And what was that game-changing moment for you? I really loved your answer, and I'm going to let you explain it in your own words.
Well, I've been running full-time tuition for 4 years, and last year it was just an off comment from one of my home ed parents. I've always had a few home ed students during the daytimes, but not very many. One of my home ed parents was complaining that none of us tutoring providers are very flexible. Which got me thinking. So I sent a survey out to all my past and present home ed student parents, asking them some questions about what they would class as flexible. And they all came back, and I looked at what they were saying, worked out what I could do as a business person to meet their flexibility without me being out of pocket. And carry on providing what we're providing, but at a rate and a flexibility that suited our parents. I set it all up, advertised it for 6 months prior to September, and now have, I think it's about 30 home ed students per week coming for sessions, and it's working brilliantly.
That's excellent. I think, the reason why I really wanted you to talk about this is because I think as educators, we often make the decision for people as to what they need, because we're so used to being in the driver's seat. And, this principle of listening to what people need not only works with creating something that's really well designed for the people who you're serving. And of course, what you said there was really important, that you had your boundaries and you thought about yourself as well. you can't just kind of go with everyone's demand. You can't say yes to everything. For you, when you were deciding on things like how to be more flexible, I imagine that you had a really wide variety of answers. How did you choose kind of what to respond to and incorporate and what not to?
I think it was a case of, yeah, they wanted flexibility. They wanted to be able to just move tuition around during the week, as and when they felt like it. And of course, if you've got other bookings, that's not going to be, terribly convenient as a tutor. So what I did was I thought, well, I'll put a timetable together where there's a choice of a couple of morning sessions, a couple of afternoon sessions per subject that we were offering, and that some would be online and some would be in person. So they've even got that flexibility. And then the other flexibility they wanted was with payments, because I always take payment up front. I charge termly normally or monthly. And they're home ed students, so often mums are not working or not working full time, and they don't necessarily have that type of cash flow. So they wanted to be able to pay weekly if they wanted to. So it was setting up a way of them being able to pay, and for me to be able, and the financial management of that, and being able to keep on top of the payments and not let somebody run up a debt with us. Yeah. So it was all of that type of organisation that I had to think about. So so I've sort of sorted out 3 ways of paying, giving them the option that they can pay monthly, and that's our preferred option.
I think that's a really good example, because what you did there was you took their feedback, but you created something that worked. It was a win-win situation. You created something that gave them flexibility, but it worked for you as well. So, I'm really glad you gave those examples, because I think sometimes when people ask for things that feel unreasonable to us, it can sometimes get our backs up, and the answer is no. But actually, when you think about it, there could be a way that works for you and incorporates their needs. So, okay, they can't just change their lessons and have it whenever, but equally you're giving them a choice of more than one slot. So that works for you, and it's giving them a degree of flexibility, which is what they wanted.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And to tell you the truth, like I said, we've ended up with 30 students. I think I've only got 1 or 2 parents that do actually move around from week to week. All the rest, it suits them to stick to a routine. And actually, for most of them, it suits them to pay me monthly. So that's, because that system's in place, that's what they're doing anyway. So
that's really interesting, because sometimes maybe people feel like they want the choice, but they don't actually need it all the time.
Yes.
But it makes them feel safe knowing they have the choice if they need it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, exactly.
I really like that. It's a really great example. And, I think it's also, I think something it highlights for me is that not to be afraid of asking for feedback, because I think sometimes people ask for feedback with a view of getting testimonials, for example, but asking the honest question of what could be improved, what would you like to see, it can feel quite nerve-wracking, because what if they criticize what you're doing? What if they ask for something you can't deliver? But I think what you've shown is, by having the courage to ask those questions, people will give you valuable information that actually you might be able to make work in your own way. But also, often they don't even take you up on the things that aren't your preferred routes. They just want to know that they could if they wanted to.
Exactly.
So it starts with that courage, doesn't it?
Yeah. They also told me that they wanted, more choice of subjects and everything else. So, they wanted the maths and the English and the science, but they also were saying that they wanted things like sociology and art and that type of thing as well. And history, everyone kept saying. So I did put all of those on the timetable. And none of them have got any bookings, so we've ended up reducing the timetable, and actually ended up putting in more slots for science and maths, and actually design technology has really taken off. So it just shows you again. So on my offer, it does say I sort of send out a leaflet for new people that are it does say we can offer these subjects, but you need to ask us, and then we'll work out where we can put them in the timetable that suits you and us.
Yeah.
And left it at that. Yeah.
That's really nice. And I think that's important, because what you're also doing there is you're responding to the culture and the need of the people that you're working with. Well, thank you so much, Marie. I think that was such a valuable insight. I hope it's given people a little light bulb moment. And if anyone has been struggling to pluck up the courage to ask those questions in case someone criticizes what they do, I hope what they've taken away here is not to see it as a criticism, but to see it as, okay, they've highlighted a way. They've actually told me how I could improve my offering and get more sales. They've given me the answer. I don't have to work it out. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insight, Maria.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Anita O'Broy. I'm an 11 plus tutor working in Birmingham and the Midlands. I work with students in years 3 to 5, preparing them for 11 plus entrance exams. I've been doing that since 2018. So I run a business, Headway Tuition. So yeah, that's what I do.
Thanks, Anita. So on your application for this episode, you mentioned how you realised that parents of 11 plus students don't always necessarily care about results. And that was a really game-changing moment for you, for your business, for the whole works. Would you tell us a little bit about it? Because I found it really interesting.
Yeah, I think as a tutor preparing for entrance exams, where obviously, it's very results focused, isn't it? I was under the impression that the only measurement that parents were going to be interested in was the final result, and how many parents, were commenting on the success that they'd achieved through working with me at Headway Tuition in terms of how well their child had done overall in the exam and what grammar schools that had led to. And that was really what was, in my head for a very long time. And I think the turning point for me was really when I was looking for the services of somebody, and I was very specific about the kind of referral or the kind of reference that I was looking for. And I realised that a lot of the parents that I work with, they're not just focused on the end goal of the result. They are focused on the journey and the process, and how are you going to get my child through this, and what does your structure, what does your teaching look like? And I think what I realised was I needed to be a little bit more specific when I came to asking questions around what they could include in their testimonials. So it's really opened things up, because what I've realised is that I know what I offer, but parents looking inwards at me for the first time, they don't realise, they don't know how I'm structuring things. So when parents talk about my core skills course or my exam skills course, or they talk about the comprehension course I've put together for a specific year group, that really helped other parents with their decision making, because people were talking more specifically to the things that they were looking for. It wasn't generic, we've just gone to this tutor and she's got a child through and that's it. It was much more detailed, and the more detail that parents were able to put into those testimonials, the more I was seeing a result and a change in how people were kind of coming through, and the kind of requests and inquiries that it was generating as a result of that. So that was really eye-opening, because I hadn't thought that was something that people would be looking for. I think you're coming into something from your own very narrow perspective sometimes, and I think it's interesting when that gets shaken or that gets changed, and you kind of realise that just doing things slightly differently, just adding a little bit more information, just opens the door to other people as well, because they might just be looking for other qualities that you don't see yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I was having this conversation with someone yesterday that one of the worst things we can do is to make assumptions about I'll call them our target clients, our parents. It's really dangerous to make assumptions. And often the assumptions go like this: I want to increase my prices. Oh no, but my clients can't afford that. Or I want to increase my prices, or I want to put on this course in December. Oh no, but it's Christmas. People can't afford that. These are assumptions that we make on behalf of other people. And often we're not correct, But I think those assumptions can go even further, like what you were saying. I teach for 11 plus as well. And there is, from the outside, this culture of it being incredibly results focused.
Yeah.
Reality is that, like, the clients that and I'm in some circles, I think it is incredibly results focused.
Yeah.
It depends on who you work with.
Mm-hmm.
With my clients, we rarely talk about results because actually a lot of the time there's a really good chance the child won't get in, and we know that, but they want to give it a go.
Yeah.
They want to give it a go kind of ethically, not in a way where that child is burning out and going beyond what's right for them.
Yeah.
So actually, when parents ask me about results, which is quite rare, I'm similar to you where, actually I tell them about other things, and I tell them I don't have a, 99% track record because these are the kinds of students I take, and I'm always going to do things in a way that's right for them.
And I think that's really important, isn't it? I think that when you're out there and you're trying to help people make that decision, it's the more they can see what you offer and how you offer things. So the more broad those testimonials are, the better they've got in terms of the picture that they end up receiving from who you are as a tutor, how you work, how you communicate with people, what they can expect from you outside of the kind of, I suppose, assumed kind of expectations of you what you're teaching for the 11 plus, and how to get children through. If you're kind of explaining or showcasing that you've got all of these other strings to your bow, I think it does help parents understand who you are a little bit faster as well. So I think it also changes the kind of conversation. What I've noticed is that parents that came to me that were literally just coming off the back of testimonials, it almost felt the same as when they'd been recommended. A lot of people, when they've had a recommendation, they're kind of almost there. It's just a case of they just want a conversation. They just want to, whatever little concerns they've got, niggles, questions, whatever they've got, they just want to come and get those answered and know that you've got, you're competent enough to answer their questions, I guess. And I almost felt that they'd done enough research or they'd got enough information from those testimonials to then cross the line and actually become clients, which has never happened before. So I've now got a number of people that have come to me this year. That's what's really kind of surprised me about this, is that they've turned into clients. They've turned into not just like people that have done a couple of weeks, they've actually come onto the course and paid for the course itself. So it just shows the value in getting the right information into the testimonial in the first place. And I always struggled to ask for testimonials. I always felt like it was another thing that I was putting on the parents. But I think I've also changed the way that I ask for them. And I'm very clear about the kinds of things that they can put into their testimonials, give them a bit of help around, talk about the course that you did with me, because it's different for all of them. So that's been really good. It's been really helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, the theme of the summit is kind of reimagining and redefining what's possible. And I think this was really interesting because for us as well, success looks like something different for each of us. Growth means something different for all of us. And I suppose that's exactly what you're talking about. We make this assumption that for exam parents, the results is the most important thing. But then, as you've proved with your testimonials, actually they care about other things as well, because success looks like something different to everyone. And I think, moving away from those limiting beliefs or those assumptions is really powerful, not just in the context that you spoke about, but also in the context of when we think about ourselves, our businesses, the way we tutor, everything really. It's about making sure we're aligning ourselves with what really matters to us.
I think that's it. And I think that you can save a lot of people's time by making that clear in what people talk about in terms of what they've experienced from you. I'm not the tutor to come to if you are, the end goal for you is, I want my child. I've had parents say to me, I don't care what it takes. I don't care how much money it costs. Just get my child into grammar school. That's not how I work, and I really, really want that to come through. I'm not saying that people that have to kind of focus on results and that is very much part of what they offer don't necessarily do that. It's just very much a part of what I do because of my own personal experience of the 11 plus. And so I'd be going against, the things that I stand for at the end of the day. I think you just need to attract people that kind of understand that and are okay with that.
Yeah, thank you, Anita. That was really interesting. Thank you so much for being a part of this very special episode. And I hope to see you at the summit.
Yes, definitely. It sounds really good. Looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Sam.
I'm Claire. I'm the face of Power Up Tuition, and I am a face-to-face maths tutor in Surrey.
Lovely. And what's the one thing you'd like to share that has really helped you reimagine your business?
The thing for me was definitely the day that I made peace with the things that I realised I didn't want, and then gave me the headspace to think about what I did want and how that was going to look. It was a really noisy time. I think there's lots of you should do this and this is next and well, what are you going to do? And there were lots of things I didn't want to do. And I went to an event and there were lots of people in the room doing the things that I felt that I should want. And in sitting in that room, I realised I don't want that. And I don't have to want that. And that for me is definitely the one thing.
Can you give us an example of, how, like, what you came across where you thought, actually, I definitely don't want that?
Growing a tutor team. I was sitting in a room with lots of tuition businesses, and there was lots of discussion about the problems that they think, the things that they found hard. And I'd always been a bit, I'd reached capacity with my own tuition, and people said to me, oh, you need to take on tutors, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I just sat in that room and I was like, no, I don't want that. I really, really don't want that. And I've never done it.
Yeah. And how did that feel to kind of say, actually, I don't want that? Like going from maybe I should to no, definitely don't.
Just a bit of breathing space, a bit of relief, that I could build my business just me in the way that I wanted to, and that I didn't have to take that route. That's not the only route. I'm making good money in my business. I'm happy with where I am. And I've never taken that route. I've never gone on to online tuition or international tuition. I'm still very much me in Surrey doing my thing.
Yeah, I think that's an important message because there are a lot of messages and that none of them are wrong. And I don't even think, dare I say, that it's pressure. I think we interpret it as pressure. We feel the pressure. It's how we digest it. But figuring out what you want to do and what you don't want to do is so clarifying. But it's also important to recognize that what you want can also change because it can be so circumstantial. I've been the same as you, where I've gone back and forth a little bit with should I hire tutors, should I not? And I just kind of go with my gut. It doesn't feel right now. It hasn't felt right so far. It's not to say I never would, but it's just not a priority right now. And it gives you so much clarity because there's an exercise that I share with my clients, which is start by deciding on your goals. So they could be income goals, how you want to work goals, whatever it might be. And then make 2 lists. The first one is what are you willing to do? And then the second one, which is really important, is what are you unwilling to do? And so it means that you could still say, do you know what? I want to double my income, but I'm unwilling to take on a team of tutors to do that. So it's now ring fenced the ways you're going to grow your business to double your income, for example. But it gives you clarity rather than that confusion of, oh, these are all the different ways. Which one should I choose?
And if you pick a path that you don't really want, you're never going to put your passion into it. And therefore it will never be as successful as doing something that you feel in the heart.
Yeah.
And the stage I'm at, I've got 2 teenagers. We're going through A-levels, GCSEs. They need my attention. And I know that if I was trying to do something where my heart wasn't in it as well, then everything would just go wrong. And I think that, it's never say never, but I know really right now that's not what I want, and that's okay.
Yeah. What would your advice be to somebody who is kind of at those beginning stages and they're seeing all these different things, and it's not that they feel pressure that they should do it, they just feel really confused about which direction they should go in? What advice would you give them that you would give yourself, if you like, when you were in that confused state?
Um, it's really hard to say. For me, the realization kind of came out of nowhere. I was at an event, and it was in that discussion in that room that I just suddenly just had that epiphany of I don't have to want that. So I think anybody that is confused, then it is a question of, what do you feel that you want? Ring out those shoulds. Is it a should? There was something I was going to apply for last year, and I ended up not applying for it because I realized that I felt that I should want it, not that I did want it, which was to speak at an event. And I felt like that should have been my next stage. So I think when you've got that word should in there, then that needs to be a little bit red flaggy.
Yeah. I think also it's looking at, well, what's going to serve me right now.
Yeah.
So you may want to speak in at an event, and you may not have any kind of agenda. So you're not thinking, oh, it's going to help my business in this way and that way. You may just want to do it, to experience it. And that's a good enough reason.
Yes.
Because on the flip side, you've also got this kind of thing where everything needs to lead to growth. And actually, sometimes you can do things just because you want to. That's also a good enough reason. But yeah, I think it's really good to kind of also ask yourself, if you're specifically thinking of growth, how is this going to serve me? You know, yes, I can see lots of people speaking at events, just using that as an example. But if I speak at that event, is it going to serve me? And, that's really helped me also this year decide which events to go to. And, there are so many events, and every time it means taking a day out of the business, day out of my life, loads of organizing, loads of planning. There's an expense side to it.
Absolutely.
And it's, it's tempting to go to everything. Everything could be useful for sure.
Yeah.
But when I asked myself, well, how will this serve me? That's what really dictated it. And actually this year I've been going to more events outside of the tutoring space.
Right.
Because that's where I feel like I want to expand.
Yeah.
Not in terms of my business, but there's so much to learn from the world around you. Yeah. And I think that when you stick to one niche and you're around the same people and hearing the same people speak, it can feel a bit stale. It can feel a bit like an echo chamber. So that's just my choice. That doesn't mean that going to loads of tutoring events is a bad thing if you feel like it serves you.
Yeah, and I've done the same this year. There was a couple of events that I've chosen not to go to because I'd felt that, a combination of the people that were speaking were not what I needed to hear right now. And as I say, balancing out the expense of everything that's going on. And should, and again, it came into the should, and making those choices. But for me, absolutely, it was just over a year ago, making peace with that. I don't want that, and that's okay, has really just helped me think about what I do want. And as a consequence, I assume it's partly as a consequence, my income this year I'm ahead of where I was this time last year because I've been focusing on the things where I'm passionate. And therefore I'm, seeing the benefits in myself because I feel like the pressure's off a little bit. And I got more comfortable saying, no, I don't want to. And and I just think it's hard, and especially with social media and comparisonitis and, well, that person's here and now they're there and they're doing that. And it's just like, no, blinkers on. What will serve me? What do I need? And what can I deal with where I'm at, family life wise and health, mindset, all those sorts of things. What can I cope with, and what do I want? And I think that's something that we don't always focus on.
Yeah. And I think a really nice reframe is when you're seeing the people around you and what they're doing. I quite like to see it as they're showing me what's possible.
Yes.
You know, it's not that I have to do it because they're doing it, but it's really exciting that that's a possibility.
Yes.
And actually, like, you know, this episode is a one-off special episode in the run up to my summit. And that's kind of that is the theme. It's let's reimagine what's possible. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean you have to do those things,
No.
but let's get excited. Let's open our minds. It might be you come across something really interesting and you think, I'm going to shelf that because I don't really want to do it now. It doesn't resonate with me right now, but I can see myself doing it later.
Yeah.
But it's kind of this filled with excitement when you look around you and you see what's possible rather than looking around you and comparing yourself or wondering whether that's the direction you should be going in or that somehow you're not a very good business person because you're not doing that thing.
Or they're so much further ahead.
Yeah. It's just a complete reframe. And what you end up then doing is you kind of celebrate what other people are doing.
Yes.
Rather than feeling a bit triggered or feeling, you know, and I'd be lying if I said I never felt that way. In the early days, I did.
Yeah.
But going through a similar journey to you where I became very clear on what I wanted and what I didn't, and being okay with that evolving, it gives you a sense of self-assurance and security.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Claire. Thanks for sharing your thing. I think it's a really, really important discussion. And I look forward to seeing you at the summit.
Yes, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for having me, Sam. I'm Sophia and I run a company called Pineapple Tuition, and I teach GCSE science and A-level biology myself. I also have a small team of tutors that tutor for me. We also offer English and maths at GCSE, but our main focus is the GCSE sciences and A-levels.
Lovely. And I was really interested with what you wrote, what you wrote to me when we talked about this episode, and that was how progress is still progress even when you're going through difficult times, and it's just kind of redefining what that means to you, which is so in line with the theme of this summit. Would you tell us a little bit about how that was a real game changer for you?
Yeah, I mean, all through my career as a teacher, I've always been very expecting a lot of myself all the time, and I love having mastery of my subjects as I started in my teaching career, and it was always I set the bar really, really high for myself. And then once I moved out of the classroom, I kind of kept that same ethos in place all throughout my career, but moving out of the classroom was a bit of a game changer for me because I was expecting so highly of myself all the time. I'd set myself targets in terms of financial targets, the number of students I want to have, and I was kind of berating myself if I wasn't reaching those targets in the short time scale that I set for myself as well. And as you know, in schools, it's quite a fast-paced kind of environment. And so you're always constantly moving. You kind of have to keep up. Whereas when you've got your own business, you've got so many other choices and you can do things a different way. And it's taken me 2 years into my business to actually stop and realize and almost rejig those priorities and have that confidence in myself to say, I've got this big goal, but it doesn't necessarily, I don't have to do everything now. And I don't need to dilute my energies into 3 or 4 or 5 different things. I don't need to say yes to everything. And just having that confidence and building my own self-esteem, I suppose, in being able to say, actually, you've made some progress today. You know, as long as I do one thing towards a goal that I've got, I'm good with that. So it's being kind to yourself, I think, and it's easy to, as I said, stay on that kind of what do you call it, the rat things that go around.
The hamster wheel.
That's the one. That's the one. The hamster wheel. Yeah, even now, like I'm getting old now, I don't remember the words. But yeah, to get off that hamster wheel and go, actually, it doesn't need to go whizzing around all the time. So
yeah, I think it's a really good point. I was thinking about this morning. I don't know why this was the thought I had when I was waking up, but I was thinking about how when you're employed, it's really normal to be on the same salary, for example, for a few years. You don't expect a pay rise every year, but when you run your own business, you expect your profits to increase every year. And if it doesn't, you know, somehow it's a bad sign or whatever. And it's very similar to, you know, I had some things happen in my life last year that really made me take stock of what does success mean to me, because at that time, yes, I needed money. You know, I spent 20 grand on fertility treatment. That cost a lot. However, what I needed more because I could have borrowed the money. There are lots of ways of me accessing 20 grand if I didn't have it. What I needed more were options. I knew that I needed to be in a position where I could do this thing that was really tough on my health, both physically and mentally, without my livelihood collapsing. And because I was facing this possibility of having a child, I also needed a business that would accommodate that. And I realized that it's about having choices. It's not always about growth and about being on, like you said, that hamster wheel, because your priorities and your life changes as time goes on. And so I think that's why I really wanted to talk about this today, because it's really important to be unapologetic about wanting growth. So if you want to be on that treadmill, and if that's the season you're in right now, that's fine. You also don't have to be on that season if that's not what feels aligned right now.
100%. It's the idea of having seasons in life and having seasons in your business. 100%. It just opened up such a lot of things in my mind, where again, it's not chasing the next thing, and that juggling of the priorities. I've got 3 or 4 different thoughts at the same time, all intermingling in my mind. But that beginning part of, like you said, for me, it was that financial stability and actually getting that safety in place. And once that was there, yes, I've got the option to grow and keep growing, and that being in your own business, you have the freedom, you have the choice to make it exponential if you want to go all out. But also for me, where I've got young children as well, I spent a lot of time going full circle in achieving that financial stability and then reprioritizing with, actually, I'm okay now, like I'm feeling safe now, and I need to make sure that I bring the kids in as a priority and my time and connection with them, while they're still sort of young, and being content and confident enough to know that growth is coming. That it's almost that rock solid confidence in yourself. That growth in business is such a magical thing, because like you said, in teaching, your income, it is like, I was on the top of the main pay scale for sort of 4 or 5 years, and so my income was exactly the same. I was doing more and obviously having to do more because of the job, but the beauty of being in your own business is that growth is unlimited. And once that kind of gets into your bones, that actually there is no limit, which is like quite amazing even to think of it in itself. Like, you can do, you structure things correctly and the sky really is the limit. So I have now that belief in myself that actually now is the time for the kids, and then the next thing will come next. It's all good. It's all
Yeah.
good. So it will happen. Which it is magical. I feel like a different person to who I was even a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And actually, well, before we hit record, we talked about how it's, we're both feeling really present in our businesses right now. We're both feeling like I'm where I need to be. And the future is the future, but right now I'm where I need to be. And interestingly, last night I went to a book launch by Daniel Priestley, and he was,
Wow.
he was being interviewed, and he asked this one question that really stuck in my mind, which was, he had to ask himself, how much is enough? Like, when do I stop? And he was saying that, I have a wife, I have children, they're my priority. So, but I love growing my business. I'm almost, he's almost addicted to it.
Yeah.
And so he was like, so I had to really ask myself, how much is enough? And I think that's such a hard question to answer, but equally, it can change. So right now, it might be enough while your children are young, but as they grow older, as life changes, maybe enough, that definition changes as well over time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? Because early on, even before I became a proper entrepreneur, it was, I'm going to make 1 million, or I'm going to make this many million. And I'd set those financial goals for myself for no real reason other than really that I'd heard other people bandying about these numbers. But it is a really good question. How much is enough? I've got good days, I've got bad days, I've got good months, I've got bad months. But ultimately, across a couple of quarters, it kind of balances itself out. But I also think I've started now exploring this idea that at some point the money is not a thing anymore. It's just, it becomes that personal challenge, like you said, the addictiveness of how far can I go with this? And I think pushing those boundaries I find it really exciting. And my problem, which I've self-identified, is the shiny object syndrome of like, oh no, but I could write a book and I could do this and I could run this course and do this. And I've been guilty of it throughout my life. It's been I think a little bit of an ADHD sort of trait in me. But my challenge now is, how much can I focus on the things that I want to focus on in my business, and how far can I take that and go down that road?
Yeah.
And that's the fun part of it, because it is unlimited, and that's overwhelming, but also so super exciting.
Yeah, I hear you. I feel the same. And actually, something that I have really come to the realization as well is that, like, when you think about it and you think about your income goals and you think, in the grand scheme of things, I need a tiny portion of that pie. And so I think that having that abundance kind of mindset, coupled with the fact that I don't also need to do everything in order to make those things happen for myself, that has really helped me avoid that shiny object syndrome. Like this podcast, there are so many times where I've been tempted to do something else, but if I had, I wouldn't be able to maintain something like this podcast. And yet the pod has been, I've met so many people through it. It's had brought so many clients in my direction. I really enjoy doing it, that it would be such a shame to dilute this because I've got distracted with something else. So it's like, it's also that realization that not only can progress look different and success looks different at different points in your life, but also there's actually a surprisingly little amount you need to do to hit those success points that you want to hit, because there are so many options around us as well, isn't there? So I think that's been a real game changer for me. It's kept me a lot calmer. I have space in the day, which I never used to, because I don't need to do it all, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that is part of the learning curve of running your own business and being an entrepreneur, is that the beginning of the journey where you're finding your feet and trying lots of things. But as you progress through your career in your own business, you find the things that do kind of really push the needle, you know, and then you can double down on those. And there is an art to stepping back and going, actually, I really, really enjoy doing, I don't know, writing a book, but right now might not be the time for me to spend my time doing that, because my time is so valuable.
Yeah.
It's better spent doing social posts on Facebook, because that's what brings the clients in. So yeah, it's being able to prioritize, and yeah, I think that's a skill. And like, it just reflecting back as I'm talking, that is a skill that I need to just keep. It's a constant thing. It's a daily thing.
Oh, it's always, yeah.
What are my goals for this week? Boom, boom, boom. Let's write them down. Right. What am I doing towards these goals? 1, 2, 3. And then make sure that what I'm doing is aligned with where you want to go. But again, it is exciting. Like, I really enjoy the variety of, like, just back to, like, you can do anything. Like, it's up to you. You get to choose. It's like, in the beginning, I really struggled with the structure of my week and the structure of, like, how much should I be, am I working enough? Like, I've not done, I'm only teaching a couple of lessons this week. Like, how, there's never, like, you're always questioning yourself. And then as you find the things that work and you double down on those, then the needle starts to move, and then you see the impact, and often quite quickly as well. And it's having that kind of self-control, I suppose.
Absolutely. Sophia, what an interesting discussion. I could have spoken to you for another hour on this, but this was just a tiny little snippet. So I should have you back on the pod soon. Thank you so much for giving up your time and sharing such a useful insight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll speak to you soon.
I'm Miralee Askew, and my business is Tots to Teens Tuition and Consultancy. So I cover early years and the primary phase, as well as lower key stage 3, and that can be children who've got special educational needs right the way through the spectrum of children who are quite gifted and able and talented and perhaps working towards something like the 11 plus or entrance exam. So in a nutshell, that's who I am.
Lovely. And I was very, very interested in what you emailed me with for an idea of what to talk about. I'm going to let you put it in your own words. What was that game-changing light bulb moment that really changed how you viewed your business and how you approached it?
So yesterday, I was in a traffic jam and I'm really into 80s music. And I was in a traffic jam listening to some 80s tunes on these 80s radio stations, of which there's quite a lot now. And I was listening to the Talks song, It's My Life. And I really started to tune in to the bass line. And the bass line is quite loud and powerful initially, and then it sort of slinks off into the background, and there's this rhythm, this tone, this timbre that really is a tune in itself. And it made me think, that's it. Very often, as practitioners, we perform, we're quite loud and brash and we're creative with the way that we present things, but often in the background there's this sort of tune, it's quite subtle, that we haven't quite got to yet. And as practitioners, especially if we've come through the school system, we often have negative experiences and we launch into tutoring. We think, oh, this person's doing that, the other person's looking successful over there, I'm going to do all of that. And we don't really listen to that baseline tune that's going on. We're not being truthful to who we really are as practitioners. And I've been through this process myself, sort of copying others and thinking that I need to do this, that, and the other, when actually what I need to do is really listen to that baseline tune that's going on, that's in the background, because it's got a message. And the message is, do it that way because that's you. And it's amazing what happens when you present yourself and you're talking to parents for the first time, selling your services, you relax and that comes through and it gives the parents confidence in you, because they can hear it, they can also feel it.
Yeah, really well explained. Thank you. And I really agree. It's very aligned with how I work and how I talk to tutors when I support them, because ultimately I do think that sales is, even marketing, it's a bit of an energy exchange. People mirror each other. And if you're doing something because you think it makes really good business sense, but you're not really feeling it, even if you're the best performer, there are little subtleties that will come through. The passion won't necessarily be there, or your confidence will be lacking. So when someone says, I'm not sure, you take that as a no, when actually it's an I'm not sure, and there's a conversation to be had. So I completely agree with you. And I think it's a really good point. It's also very challenging though, because when you're doing something new, so let's say you have walked away from teaching, you've entered the tutoring space. Firstly, you're dealing with the hangover from being a teacher, and that comes with so many different things. But you're also in a new space. And I think sometimes you put this, it's almost like asking a question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And not having the answer. So sometimes I think you have to almost experiment and take inspiration from other people and try things out, because sometimes you figure out what that baseline is for yourself when you use the process of elimination, because you've tried it and you're like, that didn't feel right. And then that gets you a little closer. So I suppose what I'm saying is, what you're talking about, I think, is that ultimate, oh, I'm exactly where I need to be. And that where I need to be can change over time. But equally, there can be a journey to get there. It's okay not to be there yet, because sometimes you do have to try those different things, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, it can take years, and that's okay. It's good to go through that process, to pick things that you think, well, I'll start with this and work with that and develop it and see how it goes. And when we come out of school, and by the way, I'm still in school only for a couple of days a week, trial and error important to get started, but to really have that baseline in the background and gradually bring it forward. And there's this philosopher and writer who I've looked into over the years, called Howard Thurman, who was a Black activist and a writer and educator. And he said something like, don't ask what the world needs, ask yourself what brings you alive and go and do that, because the world needs people to come alive. And I just love that quote because, you know, as teachers, as practitioners, as tutors, we want to please everybody. We want to save the world. You know, we're nurturing these young minds. And alongside that, we need to do the work that really brings us alive. And when you start to explore something like that quote, you get closer to what it is that really lights you up.
Yeah, and I think when you're exploring who you are and what's in alignment, it's also okay to say, education isn't it for me right now, because I think that it can become such a core part of your identity. I remember leaving the classroom, and it was probably my identity that I struggled with the most. Who am I if I'm not a teacher? So I think that sometimes, you know, when you're really truthful with yourself, you can also sometimes surprise you. I've had clients who started off tutoring. It was their means to get out of the classroom whilst doing something that felt safe and familiar, but they realized it was something completely different that lit them up. One of my ex-clients, one of my early clients, became a VA, and another one, she became a copywriter, and one other person, she runs a product selling business. She sells perfume. But they started classroom tutor, and then they felt safe enough to kind of explore what really lights me up, what excites me. And it's okay to also walk away from a profession that you have held as being so meaningful for so long. It's about you, isn't it? And life changes and priorities change.
Totally. And it's great when you can see that that's what you were meant to do, that, you know, teaching, tutoring was a means to an end up to a point, and to have the confidence and bravery to step away from it, because we're often made to feel guilty if we let down, you know, classes of children, families, whatever it is. But you've got to sort of have that connection to your heart and soul and really go for what it is that is going to light you up, that's going to bring you alive. And there's that quote by Benjamin Franklin, says something like, most people die, I'll probably get this wrong, but something like, most people die when they're 25 but aren't buried until they're about 75. I mean, that just tells you everything. Gosh, you know, if you stay doing something that doesn't light you up, that pulls you down, that makes you depressed and unhappy, why?
Yeah, I agree. Really interesting. Thank you so much for bringing this to light and for having this discussion. I hope to see you at the summit, where the theme is redefining what's possible, stretching our thinking, having interesting discussions. Thank you so much for being part of it.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me, Sumantha.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I'm Sophie Hocking, and I am founder of Lighthouse Tuition Southwest. We are a small tutoring company based down in South Devon, and we specialise in working with primary and SEN specific work with children.
Lovely. And what was your game-changing moment, your light bulb moment as a tutor?
Well, I've been tutoring for a few years now, but I only started Lighthouse as its own thing in April this year. So that's when I sort of brought other people on board. And I think for me, the big moment that really sort of has stuck as a U-turn in my career so far was when I started to remove my mask as a neurodivergent teacher, tutor, educator. Once I removed that mask and kind of came to sessions and came to my business and my tutors and to the parents I work with as myself, actually everything started to sort of fall in place, because people, if you come at things with integrity and with authenticity, I found for me that means that not only are your students relating to you and inspired by you even more, but actually it means that you don't have to then sort of second guess what you're saying. You just live your truth. And my lived experience is with ADHD. And actually, so bringing that to sessions, and when students are, bringing different levels of energy or regulation to sessions and being able to meet their needs and understand it with lived experience, that has been revolutionary for my work and then my training of my teachers as well.
And what has that looked like for you? So when you started thinking, actually, I can just be me in the truest sense, how did that impact your lessons and your relationship with children and even your business?
So it was a bit of a convoluted sort of road to get to where I am now with tuition. I started in sort of dance therapy and therapeutic arts. And so a lot of my work sort of has underpinnings of occupational therapy, regulation, nervous system, sort of empowerment and understanding. And I really believe that you can understand yourself and your nervous system and how to regulate yourself from any age. And it can be as simple as, running around the room or whatever it is, or it can be really understanding zones of regulation. And so I try to really implement that into my sessions with my students. We've got 2 hubs, and they're very sensorily set up. I'm in one now. We have lots of different ways to sit, to stand, to kneel, to whatever you want. It is completely accessible in here. There is no expectation for children to learn in a certain way. And actually that is also included when they come in. I might be like, oh, we feel a bit fizzy today, or whatever it is, or we feel a bit slumped today. We're hyper-aroused, we're hyper-aroused, hypo-aroused. And then we've got lots of different ways that we can boost or calm. But maybe it's a bounce on the Pilates ball, looking at different occupational therapy methods of alerting the body, something quick and physical, organization, you just crossing over the body, sorting a task, whatever it is, and then some sort of calming task. And actually, I found that it's absolutely crucial for not only just self regulation and self-understanding and empowerment for that child and for myself, but actually it's really benefited learning. And so what the children are, how much the children are progressing is huge, because what these children bring often to sessions is like a heavy weight of the shame that sometimes they are carrying at school and in other settings. And actually here they don't have to bring that. And actually I really encourage children to fully be themselves. There's a statistic that I've read recently, actually, but it's kind of, you see it everywhere. Children with ADHD are more likely, they come into contact with 20,000 times more negative comments than children who are neurotypical by the same age. So by the time they get to, I think it's 10. And actually what that then means is some of these children come to sessions with this vision of, I'm not good at maths, or I don't like reading, I'm not doing reading, I can't sit still. Sometimes they've got this inner voice that tells them that they're not good at learning. And actually I know that voice because I had that voice until becoming an adult and understanding myself properly.
That's really amazing. I mean, your learning environment and your style, all of it just sounds beautiful. I mean, even I'm neurotypical, and I think I would love that environment as well. Where you can just be yourself, because I think when I think back to a student, you are under this kind of behavior expectation, this presentation expectation, but you are as a teacher as well. And I think one of the beautiful things about tuition is that it is so versatile in how we approach education, the rules, how many people there are in the room, like everything is it's just really flexible. And what I really like about what you're saying is that you have adapted that completely to the people that you teach. So my students wouldn't necessarily need that, although when I think about it, they would love it regardless.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily have specific needs that requires that for them to learn effectively and to feel.
Yeah.
But I love that you have tailored it for that. So when you kind of came to this realization, did it also impact how you showed up as a business? Because, you know, we obviously are speaking to parents, we might be promoting ourselves, there's a marketing element. And, you know, a lot of us, you can be authentic, but without being completely yourself, because there's this kind of professional side to yourself, isn't there, as well?
Yeah.
So did it impact how you presented yourself as a business to the outside world as well?
Definitely. I think it's really shaped the business as it is now, for sure. There's a real thing that I say to my tutors, which is, remember, children have teachers at school, or a lot of the children we work with have had emotional based school avoidance, and so actually their preconceived conceptions of teachers is actually sometimes really negative, and that can also be a similar route with parents as well. So I say to them, they've got teachers at school. We don't want to be too teachery for Lighthouse, and that's the thing with us is you show up as yourself, whether you're neurodivergent or not, because some of my tutors are, some aren't. But if you're sort of showing up as not too teachery and being kind of relatable, you can still have, you know, I'm not sort of talking discipline, but you can still have authority and positive authority without it being sort of dystopian and very disciplinary and very authoritarian, there's the word. And actually sometimes in schools, the way that schools are at the moment, through no fault of the teachers, or you know, it's just the way the system is, there's so many needs in the class, there's so many children are under supported, and actually because of that, it means that sometimes you have to be very strict and you have to be yada yada yada. It means that you cannot meet those needs for those children. However, us being not too teachery means that parents tend to be a bit more, it gets rid of this preconceived thing of, I am talking to a professional and oh my goodness, I must be, you know, my best version of parenting self as well. And when you sort of let that go, not that there's like, it's definitely a professional relationship. It's not like we're suddenly everyone's friends, but it means that people are just a bit more warm and human. And that means that, you know, that brings just that connection element, which is really positive. I'm really open on the internet and my social media and LinkedIn and, you know, all these places about my neurodivergence. I'm really open with my students and with parents as well when I meet them. And actually, I think it's been a real positive in drawing people in, is that they go, oh, I really know that you're going to understand my child. And also that I'm not going to see it, me or any of my tutors, we're not going to see it as a deficit. And we know you bring your most prized possession, your amazing child, to us. And it's not that we see, look at that EHCP or we've got this diagnosis, or they're not diagnosed, whatever it is. It's not that we see whatever their need is before, we don't see their need before the child, if that makes sense, because there's lots of research and speak around it in the world at the moment. I've just got back from the World Inclusion Congress in Kazakhstan, and there's a speaker there called James Kavanagh, who was talking about difference, not deficit. And actually there was lots of talk all around the Congress about how, you know, the most amazing people in our society, in, you know, the visionaries, the innovators, lots of these people are neurodivergent, and it's no coincidence. These are the people that you have, you know, often have the get up and go and the ideas, and you can't sleep because, you know, you're doing the thing. And so if we can frame that and then shape that into our, not only our marketing, but our personal opinions, it means that what we bring to sessions is, you know, we see the magic that your child has and is, and actually if we can raise their self-esteem, often that is the barrier to anything. So I think it all sort of feeds into each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think that leaning back into that kind of flexibility that we have as tutors, it's a shift in dynamic. It's changing the dynamic based on what suits the situation, what suits the child, and what leans into how you show up best as an educator. You know, when I was a teacher, I certainly lent on the behavior management policy because I had to, and I had to for various reasons. But now I don't have a policy that I need to use. And my dynamic has shifted very much to, we're working together. You're not working for me. So with my older students who do have homework, often ask for the homework. So, and I'll say, have you got a lot on this week? Should we just leave it? And they'll say, well, actually, could you give me a little bit on this? And so we're working almost like colleagues in a way. We're both on the same side. And so for me, that's made a really big difference to the relationship, but also how long they stay with me, their progress, their results, all of it really.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sophie. I can hear the passion that you speak about this with. And I think that for anyone listening, whether they work with neurodivergent children or not, I definitely think that it just brings to the surface that reminder that we can do things differently, which is actually, really the theme of this summit that's happening. So thank you so much. That was lovely.
You're so welcome. The big thing for me is what works for your neurotypical child or your neurodivergent child is going to work for the other way around as well. So if your classroom, your room, your space, your online, holistic approach, whatever, is accessible and meets the needs, responds to the needs of that neurodivergent child, of course that's going to meet the needs of a neurotypical child as well. They're just going to see it as absolutely brilliant fun and, oh, fantastic, I get to, sit on a Pilates ball whilst I do my work. So if you can, meet the needs for those children, actually, it's just a bonus for everyone else too.
I agree. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Claire Williams. I've been a full-time tutor for nearly 6 years now. I currently teach maths up to GCSE foundation level, and I specialise in students who are not very confident.
And I found your kind of game-changing moment really interesting, obviously, because we work together as well. So I've kind of been through the journey with you. Would you share what that thought process was that really changed the trajectory of your business and how you feel as a tutor and as a business owner?
I think it was the realisation that I really didn't need to worry about what other people thought and what other people expected me to be doing, because I spent the first few years of tutoring being really conscious of what other tutors would think of me, and it really stopped me doing things I really wanted to do. I started off teaching primary English and maths. I really didn't enjoy the English at all. And then one day I just woke up and I thought, why are you doing this? Why do you just not stop doing it? So I did, but it was a very kind of gentle, I stopped taking students on, but I kept the students I had for English. So that was the first sort of moment. Later on, I thought, actually, what I want to do is concentrate on maths and concentrate on those students who had just completely given up. They'd been told at some point, maybe a parent had said something about they weren't any good at maths, or somebody at school had said something, and they just genuinely believed they could not do maths. And I felt really frustrated that I knew that their sort of chances in the future when they got to GCSE, if they didn't pass that GCSE, their options were going to be limited. And I really, really wanted to help those students.
So, I mean, you didn't just switch then from English and maths to just maths, but you also became really clear something was very heart-led in terms of who you wanted to help. But you also changed your focus as well, didn't you? So you're also teaching at GCSE level, which was unfamiliar for you at that foundation level. What gave you that courage? Because there's a part of this I can relate to. I have a computer science degree, and when I was a secondary school teacher, I predominantly taught computer science, ICT, business studies. I taught a touch of English, so I know what it feels like as a tutor to completely switch subjects. And, I switched to English. I worked really hard. I studied hard before I offered that. But there were times, especially in the early days, where I felt like a bit of an imposter. So how have you managed that transition over to doing something which actually as a teacher you weren't qualified to do as such?
Well, I had a few tutors say to me, you really ought to do it, because they knew I wanted to do it. But it sat with me for quite a while, because I'd see posts, people saying, well, why are you doing that? You should stick with what you know, with people going, oh, I'm thinking of doing this, or I'm thinking of doing that. I'm thinking, everybody's going to think that about me if I try and do it. And then I started, the students I had from primary carried on with me into Key Stage 3, and I started looking at exam papers. I went through all exam papers. I read the examiners' reports. I took training with people that were examiners, so I understood the exam system and how students could pick up marks. But it was really, I think, the real point that made me think, look, you've got everything in place. You know you're good at what you do, which is get these children to believe in themselves. And I thought, every day you're telling children that they've got to be brave and they've got it's okay to make mistakes. It's not a failure. It just means you can have another go. And actually doing something different is really exciting. And I thought, why am I not listening to that advice? And I've got people supporting me and saying, yes, we know you can do it. And it was just me holding myself back. So I think it was the realization I can't tell children to do that if I'm not prepared to do it myself. So I think that was the moment I thought, oh, just get on with it, really.
Yeah. And I suppose also it's separating the fact that you know how to teach. So the subject you're teaching, there's almost like a separation there because you know how to teach, which means that that skill can be applied in lots of different contexts. Whereas the subject knowledge is almost a separate thing, and that you can learn as well. I mean, you can learn how to teach, but you already had that training, you already had that experience. And I think something I quite like about you, and you've touched on it, is that continual curiosity. It's the fact that you're always willing to continue learning. I'm very similar because I feel like with anything, if you're like, oh, I know everything and I'm there and I don't need to learn more, then you're not really keeping up. And things are always changing. Like when I was a trainee teacher, differentiation was the big thing. And now it's almost a dirty word. So, you have to keep up with things and research and all the rest of it. So as you were going through that learning journey, you'd kind of passed that mindset point of, I'm not going to care what other people think. I'm going to take my own advice. I'm going to go for this. People have faith in me. I need to have faith in myself. When you then actually did it and said it out to the world, this is what I'm doing, how did that feel?
It felt really, really scary. And I really believed that people were going to be messaging me going, oh my goodness, why are you doing this? You should just be concentrating on primary. But nobody said anything other than positive things. And it was just letting myself have permission to do it and believe that I could do it. And also know that if it didn't work out for any reason, I could change my mind again. And then I could change my mind again. And the important thing was I was giving it a try and believing what I told the children, that they just needed to try. And I think I had quite a closed mindset about actually being able to, it was all to do with giving myself permission and saying, yes, you can do this, and not worrying about what other people are thinking. I think that was really key, and realising nothing really dramatic happened when I declared to the world that I was going to start teaching GCSE maths. Nothing happened. It was fine.
Yeah, I think we often assume people are paying more attention to us than we realize as well, don't we? But also I think that people have opinions. When you put yourself out in the public domain, people are going to have opinions. That's their right, and that's the risk, if you like, that you take. But ultimately, if someone is looking at someone else saying, oh, who are they to do that? Then it's probably more of a reflection on the fact that they haven't given themselves permission yet. So, I really like what you said. I'm really glad you said about how you could change your mind. I think it's something I say every third or fourth podcast episode, where this concept of remembering that, it was very liberating for me as well. I remember I really wanted to run the self-development book club because I loved the self-development books. I knew it'd keep me accountable. I knew other people wanted the accountability. And it actually went really well. People were investing in it. They were staying in it. The feedback was great. It had so much scope. However, I was working too much. It was too much work for me, and it was unsustainable. And it went into the point where it was risking compromising what I was offering my clients, because it was taking me away. I was spread too thin. So I changed my mind, and I did it quite publicly for that reason, to be like, you can change your mind. It's okay. Try things out. It's okay to change your mind. And I think for anyone listening who might be at the beginning stages of their business, I mean, even possibly later on, but particularly at the beginning, where you really stress out about things like, how much should I charge and what should I offer and everything, because you feel like once you've made that decision, you're stuck. So that message that you can change your mind is so important at every stage, because it just eases that pressure, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think along with the idea that you can change your mind, that frees you up then not to wait for that perfect moment when everything's perfect, because that never happens. And our situations change, what we like doing changes, new ideas we have come along. So I think we've just got to accept that we're constantly going to be changing, and it is okay to try something and it not to work out the way you expected, and just to head off in another direction.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And what a great message to kind of end this little segment on. Claire, thank you so much for your time and for sharing that. I'm so glad that we had this conversation. It's so important at any stage to remember that, so we don't put that pressure on, and so that we don't block ourselves, not even from growth, but from just stepping into what brings us joy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it.